Ariana Grande is speaking out about Nickelodeon and her experiences working as a child actress, as well as what it's been like to look back and hear what's been brought to light. Ariana sat down with Penn Badgley and his co-host Nava and Sophie for an episode of their podcast where they really dove deep into her life and career. One of the subjects towards the end of part 1 of this episode was Ariana's thoughts on children in the industry, given that she herself is a child star. And this has been such a massive conversation in the recent months, especially child stars from Nickelodeon shows, as the Investigation Discovery Quiet on Set docuseries revealed a lot that went on at the television network during the early 2000s. They highlighted the workplace environment and the employees at that time. Dan Schneider was a big conversation in the series as they discussed his behavior with both cast and crew at Nickelodeon. Dan Schneider is a former Nickelodeon executive that is responsible for a ton of shows, including 2 that Ariana were on, Victorious and Sam and Cat. Over the years, he had tons of allegations against him. People have grown disgusted by what they've heard about him. He's actually suing the Quiet on Set producers for how he feels he was portrayed in the series. But in rewatching a lot of these shows that were created back then by Dan, people have just grown completely sick by him. There's tons of adult innuendos in these shows and in online content that Nickelodeon produced, and it's really disturbing stuff that viewers are now being made aware of through this docuseries that came out this year. Ariana was brought up in the series specifically for scenes where she is pouring water on herself, and it just isn't appropriate at all, does not look right. There's also one where she's playing with a pickle-shaped toy, and another where she's seen trying to gag herself. Those interviewed for the series were shocked to learn that this was something that was even filmed. Ariana talked about this when she was on the podcast, saying that when it came to her show, it was always a really big deal to make the producers and the crew laugh. It meant so much to them as a child star to get that kind of reaction. It made them think that they were doing something great, when in reality, the jokes that they were having to say were not great and not something that she would want a daughter of hers to be saying.
I think that was, speaking specifically about our show, I think that was something that we were convinced was the cool thing about us, is that we pushed the envelope with our humor, and the innuendos were we were told and convinced as well that it was the cool differentiation. And I don't know, I think it just all happened so quickly, and now looking back on some of the clips, I'm that's damn, really?
Yeah.
And shit, my daughter, sorry to, I just, you think about it, it's if I had a daughter, it's and
it's just so sad to hear her talk about this and know that while she was acting or doing a joke, or anyone for that matter, and all of the crew is laughing and they're loving it, they're eating it up, the kids are left to think, oh my gosh, I did so good that they are just loving it. Meanwhile, the producers and the writers of these shows are literally laughing, most likely because a child is doing an adult innuendo and they don't even know it, and they just can't believe they got away with it. I think that is so sick. That is the sickest part about this whole thing, and that is a very big part of what was revealed in Quiet on Set, the fact that this was happening, and it was happening multiple times over and over again over years and years. Ariana had revealed that things that were not approved to be on the show were then put on their website. And if you didn't know, some of the Nickelodeon shows did have correlating websites. iCarly had a website, and for the show Victorious, they had a website called The Slap that fans could interact with, much like how characters on the show used a site called The Slap, and on it, fans could access games, music, photos, and videos of the cast. And from what Ariana was saying, it seems that clips from the show that were not approved were allegedly put onto this website.
There's a bottom line, and then the things that weren't approved for the network were snuck onto our website or whatever it was, and that is another discovery. But going into it, I guess I'm upset.
The Slap is where a lot of videos of Ariana were uploaded that include these extremely inappropriate innuendos. And I will say that the website was completely shut down in 2018 after Dan Schneider was no longer working at Nickelodeon. Nickelodeon announced in that year that they would no longer be working with Dan, and there were several publications that had reported on complaints about Dan's alleged behavior on set, including his alleged well-documented temper issues. An internal investigation had been done within the company, and they claimed to have found that he was difficult to work with and prone to tantrums and angry emails, but says any other misconduct was not found during the investigation. despite what the network claimed. For years now, his name has been thrown around with accusations of being inappropriate. And I will say that it doesn't really sound like a coincidence that these sites that are correlated with shows that he produced were shut down when he was no longer in Nickelodeon. Like, did they suddenly think, oh wow, the stuff that's going on here is really, really bad? Ariana revealed a bit more as well, saying that her mom wasn't really allowed on set with her when she was younger, which is extremely troubling to hear.
Towards the end, my mom was allowed to come to set when I was like, a little. But,
she wasn't allowed to come to set?
When we were younger, they were allowed to come to run-throughs sometimes, or like things like that, like occasionally, I think. But yeah, towards the end, she was there like a little more. And we've been talking a lot about this recently, and she's been like sort of.
My mom and I have too, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, because it's like.
It's awakening.
Yeah, you have to start to process like, okay, so now knowing what we all know, neither would I want my children to be in an environment like that, nor does my mother in retrospect think that I should have been in an environment like that.
Ariana ended up talking about the fact that things need to be done when it comes to child stars and just stars in general, and that when it comes to her own personal experiences, she's still trying to reprocess things.
Obviously, my relationship to it has and is currently and has been changing, and I'm reprocessing a lot of what the experience was like. I think that the environment needs to be made safer if kids are going to be acting, and I think there should be therapists. I think there should be parents allowed to be wherever they want to be, and I think not only on kids' sets. I think if anyone wants to do this or music or anything at the level of exposure that it means to be on TV or to do music with a major label or whatever, there should be in the contract something about therapy is mandatory twice a week.
Throughout this conversation about child stars and working in the industry, Ariana really emphasized the importance of people having someone to talk to about the things that they are experiencing, especially if they are rising to fame. She says that she's been lucky enough to have that kind of support and people there for her to talk to her. And she mentioned being close with Max Martin, and that is someone that she has opened up to about things. And in this conversation, she did make mentions of the victims who have come forward with their own experiences about things that have happened to them working in the industry.
A lot of people don't have the support that they need to get through performing at that level at such a young age, but also dealing with some of the things that the survivors who've come forward, and there's not a word for how devastating that is to hear about. And so I think the environment just needs to be made a lot safer all around. And like I said, I'm still in real time processing my relationship to it.
At the time of the release of Quiet on Set, people had been urging other stars to come forward about whether or not they supported Dan Schneider or how they felt about what was being discussed, which I just felt was crazy because this is such a sensitive subject and everyone handles things differently. So nobody should have been made to feel like they have to speak out if they don't want to. And you could just tell through this that it was certainly a tough subject for Ariana to talk about, but she did say that she was glad that the conversation was happening, and she was happy that it was happening where it was with Penn and his co-hosts Nava and Sophie, and noted that this was an important thing to be talking about and that changes really are needed on set for everyone. And for anyone who was calling on her to speak out earlier this year, she's literally talking about how she is having to reprocess everything that was her experience. And I can't imagine what it's like to see what you did as a kid through grown-up eyes, especially the stuff that they had her shooting. And she did highlight the good in being a child star, as she wanted to do what she was doing at the time, and it was her dream to perform, and she got to do that alongside people that she loved.
We were young performers who just wanted to do this with our lives more than anything, and and we got to, and that was like so beautiful. I think we had some very special memories, and we feel so privileged to have been able to create those roles and be a part of something that was so special for a lot of young kids. I think we're reprocessing our relationship to it a little bit now, if that makes sense.
Yeah, completely.
It is unfortunate that people in the industry have to be so truly sick that the environment was not as safe as it should have been. But that was what Ariana had to say about the conversation surrounding Nickelodeon and her experience as a child star and the changes that she would like to see made. Let me know what you guys think about all that was discussed here, because truly I cannot believe the part where the clips that were not approved for the show were uploaded to these websites. Like, that just made my stomach turn, especially the fact that the website was taken down after Dan left. It just feels so icky. Like, the timing of that, literally unreal. But let me know what you guys think. I love you guys so much, and I will talk to you in the next video. Bye, guys.